maps. It's been a topic or a controversial topic for a while, based on themes, and we're going to get into themes and North Stars, how to build a better product roadmap. Quickly about myself. So as Nina mentioned, I'm a director of product management at Intersect. Intersect is a consultancy agency for digital transformation. I like to kind of compress to the other consultation firms out there. The difference is we actually deliver and get the job done. That's been my theme or motto for describing what we do. I have over 10 years of product management, pretty much in the startup and mid-sized company space. Former entrepreneur with one exit under my belt so far, hoping for more in the future. But I keep my taps into the startup space by staying as an advisor, mostly on the product and strategy side. So I'm looking forward to talk to you about featureless roadmaps and how I see it in the future being adopted by a lot of product groups. So quick summary of about what we're covering today is we're going over the problem with features-based roadmaps. We're covering a bit of team-based roadmap with a case study, and I'm going to cover some practical tips for us. Oops, and here's where my computer starts acting up. All right, sorry about that. So yeah, we're going to cover some practical tips along with Q&A at the end. So before I get started, one of the things I want to talk about is we all know how product management is a balancing act. A lot of us, if you ask anyone about what product management is, everyone has a kind of some definition of the approach we take and how we do things. We're the middleman, or we're kind of the glue that keeps things going. But I really want to tackle this here from more of what we do and how we handle our features and our roadmaps. If you ask anyone pretty much in product management, they'll say that converging on a specific feature is risky. So just take the simplest thing of adding a new checkout button somewhere. Just converging on where it should be, what the workflow around it could have a lot of risks, especially that there's a lot of uncertainties in everything we do when we're developing those. On the other hand, you have your stakeholders who want those feature-based roadmaps all the time, right? That's what they sell to the board, to the Excel, your sales team. That's what they sell. That's what they market in the brochures. So you have that kind of set of features you have to sell in the market, but you have not aligned on what those features should do. And then on the other hand, you have this new concept of a North Star that's entering the roadmap space, and it's still a new concept that not everyone understands. It's a lot of organizational burden, and kind of taking all of those and trying to balance it as a product manager and seeing what's best for your business and what's your organization could become a nightmare. So I wanted to segue into more what is like the problem that we have right now before getting into a featureless product roadmap, because the word and the title itself could be a bit of a strong title when you say it's like, oh, featureless roadmap, but roadmaps are supposed to have features. What the hell do you mean? Are you smoking crack? It's not, and hopefully you'll get the message by the end of it. But if we cover basically that balancing act, as I mentioned, like covering converging on a feature is risky, stakeholders want those features, and the North Star is still a new concept. And then moving forward to the problems that I was just mentioning. When talking about the existing feature-based roadmaps that we're all familiar with, right? So you have your roadmap, you have your epics, you create your user stories, you have that normal process that we all follow as product managers. The first issue is converging on features. That is basically the biggest risk that I see when you're creating those features, especially when you're converging early on, right? You're trying to figure out what the output is, what should it do, what customers are you attracting? Is it really solving the problem? So that's always been one of the risks when you're trying to define features so early on. It puts us in that mindset of focusing on output more than the outcome itself. So you're caring so much about what that button should do or where should it be placed, instead of, is it really serving that customer outcome or providing that value that my customers want, instead of just doing what my CEO asked for as a feature. And then it does put you in that feature factory mentality, especially if you're a client side or you have your own product. The way you measure things, the way you get more funding as a startup, by saying, hey, I'm launching this and I'm launching that, and I'm promising you to have this on my roadmap next month and next quarter. So kind of you're just end up building a lot of features without thinking about the strategy and the goals down the road. So if your goal is to increase conversion by 10%, for example, uh, the way you're going to approach it through a feature-based roadmap is you're just going to dump a bunch of feature without actually tying it into that goal, which allows you to lose sight of that vision that you just set up for yourself. So again, if you have that goal, you're pretty much going to lose track if all you're doing is just producing features all over. And at the same time, that's a mindset that we're all stuck with as product managers, which is execs needs feature to sell. And if you don't have a feature-based roadmap, what are they supposed to sell? So then you're getting that pressure from top bottom that's allowing product managers to kind of keep that churn of features going on until you lose sight of the product. And then one thing that I like to talk about here is like, because you're aligning on features alone sometimes, especially in the early days, you lose sight of that collective brain power, right? So when your customers or when your executives ask you for certain features, you're gonna make the assumptions on your own. And it's so fast, sometimes you haven't aligned with engineers, you haven't aligned with designers, and these folks can have their own ideas that improve your feature, improve your product. We end up solutioning on behalf of people just because of that excitement. So these are some of the risks or problems that feature-based roadmaps can create, right? And at the end of the day, we should all care about the end goal for us here, right? So, and that is kind of the main problem that I see so far. One thing that I do kind of wanted to compare here from a theme-based roadmap is like how we actually shift that mentality. Because I feel like with a feature-based product roadmap, we all know what it is, right? I think that is the status quo right now. And I just want to compare it. I think that would be the easiest way to compare it to what a theme-based roadmap is. Because I've given this presentation a couple of times and I've had that question mark on people's faces. Like, I still don't get it. Like, why is it feature-based? I'm not feature-based. Like, it's all about features at the end of the day. So let's just go quickly about what a theme-based roadmap allows you to do, right? One thing that I want to talk about here, and maybe this is acknowledging my mistakes, right? I did not know about theme-based roadmaps or featureless-based roadmap. I was just like everyone else. You create features, you put them in a roadmap, and you put a timeline when you're going to execute, and this is what you promise your executive team. But now that I know about it, and if I reflect about the mistakes I've done, the overcommitments, sometimes delivering the wrong product because we got excited about this new shiny object that we promised the client, I would do this again with a theme-based approach or a featureless roadmap approach. So there are several ways theme-based roadmap for a theme, like on how to implement one, right? And the main goal is it can allow you to tie your features to a certain themes. So a theme can have a couple of things that help you get stakeholder buy-in. So when you have that overall theme, now I don't have to get buy-in on a certain feature, a set of features. Instead, I'm getting buy-in on a specific theme. So an example, I don't have to get a buy-in on, hey, I need to add a shopping cart and I need to add a groceries list feature and I need to add a payment processing feature. I don't need that. I can get buy-in by saying, hey, I want to reduce my conversion rate, or I want to increase my conversion rate by 10 or 20%, or I want to decrease shopping cart dropout by 30%. If I get buy-in on that, how I get to that goal or that outcome will be implemented through features, obviously, but it's better to align on a certain goal and a strategy instead of certain like minor or detail specifics like that. It helps you stay strategically on track, mostly because we're shifting that mentality from output to outcome and kind of focusing on the objectives. Everything I do, everything I build is tied to that outcome or that strategy down the road. And then keeps that focus on the North Star, right? So, and I'm gonna get to that concept of the North Star framework quickly, but it allows you to think about every feature you build and map it to where it gets me there. So if my goal is in 5 years, I wanna have the fastest checkout process with minimal dropouts. So that is my North Star, and I wanna have it, let's say, in 3 years now, okay? So I'm going to build a strategy that's going to get me there, whether it's sales, marketing, product, engineering, DevOps. There's going to be a lot of strategies you have to build to get you there. But from a product perspective, now every feature, every theme, everything I build with my engineering team needs to tie into that. So if I'm building a feature today, how is it getting me closer to that goal or that North Star in 3 years? And if not, do I really care about building it? So kind of shifting your mentality to, do we have the time to build this? And shifting the mentality, do we actually care about building this? And if we do, how is it really serving that bigger purpose? And then the one important thing here is like, it actually keeps you in check and avoids those distractions of new shiny objects or those huge ideas that a customer or your stakeholder or your CEO might bring to the table, right? How many times you would have this roadmap lined up for Q1 and Q2, and you would have a meeting with your executive team, and suddenly you come back, it's like, shit, like this roadmap just been destroyed and I have to start all over again because my CEO promised this new shiny object that we have to build now, right? So that having kind of a theme or like a strategy all the time and keeping it in check with your product allows you to go a long way. So I want to kind of shift, because I did mention what a North Star framework is, and I know Amplitude is a sponsor. This was a picture from Amplitude. Amplitude is like site, thanks to Google. But the North Star framework basically helps you figure out your themes and what each team should focus on, right? It takes pretty much what I like as the North Star framework. It try to ties what the actual customer cares about or the customer value with what your executives and stakeholders care about, which is money and revenue, right? So how do you tie those? And that's what kind of that North Star framework and mentality cares about and allows you to achieve. So it's pretty much a metric that connects your customer value as a product team and ties it to what we care about as a business, which is revenue. And that customer value created by the team, kind of balancing it versus the business impact that your CEO cares about. So if you look on your left side, you would have your product, all your product initiatives that would tie into leading indicators of business outcome, which is your North Star, which in this example would be lowering your dropout by 20 or 30%. And all of that will go into tying your revenue as and increasing your shareholder value. So pretty much like it's a kind of top-bottom approach instead of bottom-up approach. I think a lot of us right now follow a bottom-up approach for our strategy because we tend to lose focus about that strategy. So I've mentioned a lot of words here, theme-based and North Star, and like the question I get every now and then is like, so Sam, how does it differ? How would I build a theme-based roadmap, and why would I even care, right? So I'm going to take a study here, like a case study that I thought about for the modern times. We live in a pandemic right now, and let's just say you have some mandate to improve a shopping experience, right? So I'm going to cover a quick case study here about adopting grocery shopping during a pandemic, right? So in normal times, people would go to a grocery store. There's no limit on how many people can be in a grocery store. You can go spend 2 hours if you want in a grocery store, figuring out every item you need before pre-planning it. But now there's a quota. Maybe there's only 20 people all the time in a grocery store, and you don't want to expose yourself to a lot of people around you, and you want to make it in and out quickly, right? So on the left side, if I've given you this problem that, hey, I want to adapt a grocery shopping experience during a pandemic, the first thing we're going to get into here is I'm going to start throwing some features. I'm going to start solving the problem without thinking about a strategy. So I'm going to think like, yeah, I need a shopping workflow. I need an inventory management because the grocery store needs to upload their items. I need a groceries list because as a user, I want to be able to kind of keep a list of items that I'm out of at home. Obviously, I need to pay. I need a pickup workflow because I need to think about these features. And so you end up like with solutioning all of these, but at this point, I have no idea how is this serving the bigger purpose, because saying adapting grocery shopping experience during a pandemic is a big statement. How do I measure that? Because if I built all of these features, at the end of the day, how would I measure that outcome? Can I quantify it? I don't think so. The only thing I could quantify here is how many features I built. But if I take this to a theme-based approach, which would say, I want to minimize my in-store shopping time by 50%. That is my bigger theme or the biggest outcome that I want to measure. So I'm solving for adapting grocery shopping experience during a pandemic by minimizing my in-store shopping experience by 50%. So I want people to spend less time, get their grocery store, get their grocery items, and get out. So the first thing now, because I have that goal, is going to start driving my mentality in a different way. So now I'm thinking about, okay, well, now that I know this is a goal, so I probably need to create a grocery checklist, and I do need an online store shopping application where I can like shop around and ask for curbside pickup. And because I need this application, I'll need somehow of a shopping workflow created, and I have to verify, like a way for me to verify that that's me who's picking it up when I do pick it up, right? So that's kind of shifting the mentality. At the end of the day, if you compare, it's the same set of features, right? For you to build that application, you still need those features, just it's tying it into a bigger purpose or like a bigger goal that you can measure. If I were to build all of the items on the right, I will be able to measure that. So are actually people now spending half the time? Are people able to do the grocery shopping in half an hour instead of one, for example? And that's how I kind of quantify that concept for me. So really, at the end of the day, it's not as much as like, hey, I'm not building features or I'm not coming up with features. It's really tying those features to a theme that ties to a North Star, that ties into a bigger strategy. So kind of keeping your sight focused on a certain goal and objective. So there's a couple of tips when it comes to this, right? So I'm hoping that we'll have some questions on the theme-based framework in a bit, but how do you get around this, and what are some tips, right? So I've applied like the Featureless roadmap on a couple of projects right now, even without making people notice that that's what we're doing, right? So that's kind of one way of doing it without causing that chaos. But it's pretty much a state of mind. That's like one of the things I like to call about that. It's a state of mind as much, and kind of because you're always thinking about strategy and have those goals. Second, feature-based roadmaps can limit an organization's opportunity to adapt, right? Mostly because they can stifle creativity, and because you're limited with that feature set that you're solving for from day one, and not having that adaptability along the way, and themes might change, goals might change, right? And you can't just come up with a feature set and define it and then move it around. So that's kind of one of the problems with the feature-based roadmaps. But it does, though, create that issue with the stakeholders, right? So getting stakeholders comfortable with the flexibility and that uncertainty is not easy, right? So like you need some leeway to change things up along the way. Teams getting stuck building something that seemed like a good idea 6 months ago, for example, but has been disproven or is in question now because of recent events. Or so if you had a roadmap of, I don't know, like before COVID, I'm pretty sure as the e-commerce business, your roadmap has changed completely, right? So when I have it tied as a theme or as a goal, I can tell and I can shift my features along the way. But if I don't, how would I go? I have to go to my roadmap and I have to spend a lot of time and figure out, okay, does this still tie to that goal? Does this not tie to this goal? And figuring things out, right? So that is one of the things. One funny thing that I actually discovered along the way is it ruins agile. Like the concept of a product-based roadmap or a feature-based product roadmap, it does kind of conflict a bit with agile, right? So if you think about it, a lot of organizations and companies today have invested a lot of time in embracing agile. Like how many companies are so proud that they embraced agile and they're using agile, but you're kind of have those short bursts of business development, rapid development, and continuous feedback loop. But a feature kind of based product roadmap discards many of the benefits agile offers, just because you're committing to a lot of those features on your roadmaps along the way before even setting yourself a goal or a strategy along the way. Sure, those sprints and releases and like your backlog grooming will help, but from a product strategy perspective, you're pretty much like dismissing a lot of the agile items that you can benefit from. And then it's like, again, this is not like a as is model you can just apply and adapt. Like you have to adapt it to your own needs, right? So every company is going to have its own theme, it's going to have their own goals, and it can become a very predictable environment for some product teams, like especially if you've had experience using feature-based roadmaps before. But it is not really a major issue. Like as a product team, I find it's easier to kind of switch to that mentality. It's how you align with the executives to get them on track and to kind of get that buy-in. But it's really just about questioning the strategy and putting that strategy in front of them. But that was pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I think we'll open the floor here for Q&A, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Sam, thank you again. That was a great presentation. I've seen like related concept. I think you kind of explained that really well. Just one comment on my part. Actually, I feel like this, the whole concept of theme-based roadmaps really helps. It almost helps the customer-facing material itself, right? Rather than try to build a feature and then sell it, you're starting the conversation with the value and the actual capability that you're delivering. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
So basically let me kind of play back. So you're saying how does it tie to kind of the customer facing product, or I'm building things through credit?
Yeah, and again, it was mostly a comment, which is saying you're starting with the value that you're delivering, right? Like reducing checkout time by 50%. That's something you can go talk to the customer directly about, instead of building a feature and then trying to back into a message on why that feature is good.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, whatever we build as a product is driving value to my customers, right? If whatever I build does not drive value to my customers, no one's going to use it, right? So even if I create a shopping experience right now outside the pandemic world, and it takes me 4 hours to get the job done, no one's going to use it, right? So, and then like I always believe, you create value, you make money. So kind of how do you tie those? You create the best value for your customer, and things will flow from there, instead of just pushing features on the customer that the customer don't find valuable at all, right? That's why now you see a lot of companies have like heat maps on their products, because they're interested to see what people click on the most, right? So if you see like you build this new feature that no one's clicking on, you're just gonna sunset it.
Exactly. That's awesome. I did have another question, but I see that Michael Dinier here has a question for you first. How does theme-based roadmap blow up Agile? Can you give an example?
Yeah, so it's not like really like blowing up or like ruining it, as much as it kind of keeps you focused from the best way to kind of say, like it kind of structures it for you, right? So I know I can, because goals change in a company, right? So the concept of Agile, like I need to be nimble and be able to change things every time. So as we know, strategies are meant to change, right? There's nothing constant, nothing is constant but change, right? So if I've tied my features to a bunch of themes in my Agile framework, I know if strategies change, or if I know my strategies are shifting towards a bit priority on something else, I can prioritize the features accordingly, because I tied all my features to a certain theme. So like I have theme A, which focuses on improving the shopping experience. And I have theme B, which makes my logistics and my platform from a DevOps point of view faster, right? So I have these two themes. And now suddenly the focus was, okay, we want to make things faster, more stable. And then the situation has changed, and now my strategy is focused on reducing or improving the shopping cart experience. So me switching kind of mindsets allow me to take all those features and know what I have to build next. I can take my team and switch their mindset to a new strategy, a new goal, instead of having to go through the normal backlog grooming and just like, okay, I'm going to take this out of the backlog, going to add this instead. So keeps your team more efficient and able to kind of pick things up.
So actually you touched on it, and that sort of connects to my question as the second question that I had as well, which is, how do you see this whole, thematic approach impacting feature prioritization? Obviously, I work in companies where everything you get is a feature request from a customer or a salesperson, or, even the development backlog, right? How does thematic approach change that or impact that?
Yeah, I mean, look, so obviously I feel every company does, no one is just kind of developing features these days without thinking about it. I mean, some companies even have that open backlog where you request features and it gets voted, and as it gets voted, that's what you work on next. difference is, as a company, you always have a goal to achieve. You always have a strategy, because if you don't, you're in bigger trouble before even talking about agile features or themes, right? So your business, I mean, if you think about it, business or like the board have a main goal for the business, and that transcends into the different departments. And part of it is the product and development team. So that will allow me to kind of translate that strategy, that goal, or that vision of the company into certain themes that I can tie the features to. But when I'm not tying things into a theme, when I don't have a theme concept, you're struggling. What would you build next, right? So if I have 100 features today, and I'm sure they all prioritize, you have story points, you have the complexity, you have the team. So assuming everything is constant, the team's efforts are the same. What would you prioritize next? Is it based on executive? Is it based on because the customers are voting for that? Sure, you might have 1,000 votes on a specific features, and that's how you're going to decide to build that. But does it really tie to a specific strategy? And that's what kind of themes are helping you do, is tying things back to the strategy, where you want to take your business, and how is the product going to serve that vision for the business. Because you don't want to have like a vision and a roadmap for the business while the product is still doing something else, because they're keeping the customers happy. And that's why, sure, you can always take customer feedback. It's actually good. That's how you get to know what the people want, and that's how you know how to drive value. But you have to extract things from that, right? So if I get 5 customer requests regarding something specific, how can I extract value from it and put a theme around it? So if everyone is saying that, hey, I want these features on checkout, and I want this thing in checkout, so there's a theme there that there's a problem with my checkout experience that needs to be improved. And then I have to go back and look at it, kind of reverse it, see what